Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you're ready for winter. I've been talking about this for like the last 6 months, that we needed to start getting ready for winter back in like March or April, before the snow had even melted here. Well, now they're coming out with what's going to happen here in the United States. It's not as severe as what's happening in Europe, or in the UK and the EU, but it is still severe, especially for those of you that may be on a fixed income, like a pension or Social Security. Americans will pay the most in 25 years to stay warm this winter. And I want to show you this chart right here. Take a look at this chart. You know, when I look at this, I think maybe I look at it in a different way than some people look at it, but it goes all the way back to the 60s. Look at how flat it was around the 60s. Pretty flat, right? Well, looking at this chart, I would say that around here is probably 1970 or so. And then around here is probably about 1972, 1973, something like that. Well, what happened in 1971? They took us off the gold standard. President Nixon did. He took us off what is called, or was called, the Bretton Woods standard, right? Where the dollar was actually backed up by physical gold. And what happens? Why is heat or heating fuel of whatever type going up in price? Let's see. I think that 1 pound of propane, let's say, if I remember right, 1 pound of propane has roughly, I think it's like 90,000 BTU, something like that. I could be wrong, but I think it's like 90,000 BTU. For some reason, I'm thinking of about 45,000 BTU as well. But let's say it's 90,000 BTU. So 1 pound of propane back here, before they took us off the gold standard, still has the same amount of BTU as it does today. What's changed in the propane that has made it so expensive? And when I say propane, I mean heating fuels in general. What's changed? Because the heating fuel itself has not changed. It still puts out the same amount of energy as it did way back then. I would argue that back here it should have been more expensive. But when I take a look at when they started ruining our money, and now, and what the effects have been as far as prices for those things, I would say, in my opinion, that it is not the propane that has devalued, but that it is the dollar. And they're going to continue to do this. Why? Because without inflation, a government cannot exist. Our government cannot exist without inflation. Without the printing of money out of thin air, our government cannot exist. And we are experiencing that now in our markets, in our economy, and the world has been experiencing it for a while now. Once that money drug gets introduced into governments, they cannot let it go. They have to have more and more and more every year. Eventually, there will be a time where that dollar is just not worth anything. And what does that mean for the price of things? It means that the price of things will go up exponentially. But the question is this: will your pay, will your wages, will your retirement check, will your Social Security check go up exponentially with it as well? Take a look at what they're saying that, well, I guess they've already made up their minds, that the cost of living allowance for Social Security here next year in 2023 is going to be, I think they said 8.7%. The largest in I don't know how many years. But why is it that they're doing that, ladies and gentlemen? It's because the money that they are in charge of, the Federal Reserve note, is losing value so fast because they're abusing it and have been abusing it for so many decades now. Bloomberg says that Americans are trying to keep warm this winter, are poised to spend the most on heating in the last 25 years. U.S. households face an average power bill of $1,359 this winter, the highest since at least 1997, according to the EIA. While much of that spike is driven by higher natural gas costs, homes that rely on oil for heat, such as in the Northeast and in Alaska, will be hit even harder with an average bill of $2,354. I am very, very thankful to be able to say that the Lord put it in me to get enough fuel for this entire winter almost a year ago. So I will be paying about the same thing that I paid last year to heat my home this winter. The outlook comes as a global shortage of diesel and natural gas set up a tough winter for households across the globe. In Europe, where the big R invasion of the big U has exacerbated an already tight gas market, governments are making contingency plans to keep the heat flowing and the lights on. I'm sure they are. Remember that this is not because of the big R and the big U. This is because of the actions that governments took on your behalf, ladies and gentlemen. All of these sanctions are only hurting you. They're not hurting anyone else but you, the common folk. And they're definitely not hurting the big R. At least it doesn't look like it. In the U.S., diesel supplies are at the lowest seasonal level on record. Listen to this. On the U.S., diesel supplies are at the lowest seasonal level on record, while gas stockpiles are 6% below the 5-year average. The energy crunch will predominantly impact the U.S. Northeast, which has limited gas pipeline capacity and relies on diesel for that heat, meaning that they need trucks to run that heating oil. Prices for natural gas and distillate, which includes heating oil, are both seen rising nearly 30% this winter. For where I live, I can tell you about what's going on for where I live. For where I live, it's more than twice as much. It's more than twice as much as it was last year. So here in Alaska, anyone that heats their home with heating oil or heating fuel, as I call it, and they didn't prep up, almost a year ago, they're going to be paying twice as much this year than what they did last year. While gas inventories could build with higher U.S. production, distillate output is seen holding to last year's level, while an energy crisis in Europe limit imports to the East Coast. So, ladies and gentlemen, just a reminder that you need to be prepared. But AP, I didn't prepare for high heating bills this winter. Okay, that's fine. There's other ways that you can prepare. Try to find out or figure out a way where you can get one of your rooms in your home heated very well. So, for example, and ladies and gentlemen, listen, I am not putting anyone down that did not go out and get an additional year's worth of fuel when I told you that you should. I'm not putting anyone down because we all live in different parts of our lives. We're all different, right? We all have different needs. Right? However, if you did fail to prepare for this, and there comes a time during the winter where you just can't afford to put that thermostat up to 68 degrees, and you find yourself having to put it down to 50 just to make sure that your pipes don't freeze, find a room in your home that you can seal off and that you can safely heat. That way you can have what I would call a hot room, to where when you need to get that chill off your bones, because you're not going to be able to afford to heat your home to the specifications that you normally do, that you can go into that room, warm it up, spend some time there. It seems terrible, and it is. But if that's what you have to do to survive, you can prepare for that now by figuring it out now and having it ready to go. Test it out. Figure it out. Do your research. All right? Do your research, because you will pay the consequences for the decisions that you make. Just like some people, I do believe that I heard that a gentleman lost his life in Florida because he brought his generator into the garage and ran it in his garage, not knowing that his heating system in the garage, or his air conditioning, whatever it may be that he was using, was actually pulling that CO2 into his house. Imagine that. Make sure that you're safe with the things that you do. Test them out to make sure that they work. Get extra layers of clothing. Get wool if you can afford wool. It retains heat very well. Another way that you can prepare for this winter is in order to free up some extra cash so that you can pay those high energy bills, use your preps this winter if you have to. If you have to use the preps that you have this winter, that you have stocked up into your pantry, that's one less cost that you would have to go through in the wintertime, meaning that you wouldn't have to buy food. Sure, you'd be living off your preps, but you'd be warm, right? And that's what preparing is for, is so that you may be able to maintain your standard of living. All right, ladies and gentlemen, short video this morning. Hopefully I'll have this up before our live stream today. I do have another video that I'll be dropping later on this afternoon. Having said that, have a great morning, and we'll see you here, in about another hour or so.